Hey guys, what's going on? This is Matt Wenning at winningstrength.com, and today we're going to talk about forgotten Westside Barbell exercises and secrets. But before we get to that, please like, subscribe, and comment on some things that maybe you learned from Louis Simmons or someone at Westside Barbell. So the year is 1999. I'm walking around the Arnold Classic with my friend Brad Sheward, who worked with my mom. He was a blood transfusionist. And we see Louis Simmons, Dave Tate, Kenny Patterson, George Halbert, etc. walking out of the expo. And Brad Sheward pushes me. He's like, you need to go talk to Louis Simmons. You're not going to get any better staying in Muncie, Indiana. You need to go and talk to these guys if you want to be world class. And I'm really, really nervous. So I finally just get up the fortitude to go and talk to him. And I said, hey, Louis, and I yell at him and he turns around and I talk to him and I tell him my numbers and how interested I am in powerlifting and what I wanted to do. And so what he did was he offered to invite me into the gym, and I went about 2 or 3 weeks later, if I recall. And what I saw was crazy. From the writings of PLUSA and the record books, I already knew these guys were strong. But seeing them in person was a whole different mindset coming into Westside Barbell. Seeing guys like George Halbert with over 20-inch arms at 220 body weight, guys like Mike Ruggiero that had immense, probably some of the biggest shoulders I'd ever seen in person at the time, and guys like Kenny Patterson who were only maybe 5'6" or so and just so thick. It was unbelievable how big he really was. And so walking into that gym, talk about intimidation. Now, the original Westside Barbell was only about 700, maybe 800 square feet. It didn't have a lot of room. It didn't have a lot of area for bullshit or equipment that didn't matter. And that's when I really realized that a lot of great facilities are small, intensive, and they have the right stuff. But for this particular video, I want to go over some key exercises that I remember learning the first upper body that I trained at Westside Barbell, and maybe these will help you break some plateaus in your bench press or put on some more muscle size regardless of what your goal may be. Some of these exercises we still use today in the apps here at the gym and at my contracts with multiple fire departments and military personnel. Before we get into these exercises, I want to break it down and talk to you about how much I learned from George Halbert. George Halbert was an amazing mentor for me from the age of about 19 to the age of about 35. He helped me not only in my shirt benching, but also my raw benching as well, being his training partner in my 600-pound raw bench in 2012, and also being my training partner benching over 800 pounds in a shirt. I'm one of the few lifters that's had multiple records in different categories of powerlifting. But what I find is that a lot of these exercises that George taught me have kept myself, my clients, and my contracts insanely healthy, giving me a huge national recognition as one of the top strength coaches in the country. So I really recommend that anything you can find that George Halbert has written or talked about or has videos on YouTube, I highly recommend you go and talk about or see what he has been talking about for many, many years. The first exercise that I want to talk about and show you guys is the dumbbell tricep rollback. This is one of the first exercises that I did at Westside Barbell, and there was a ginormous black guy there named Tilt at the time. We were doing these after bench presses and worked up to about 90 to 100 pound dumbbells for a couple of sets till failure. That particular workout, I beat Tilt in that tricep movement, and then about 2 weeks later when I showed back up to work out again, Tilt was gone. And when I asked Louis, where was Tilt? Tilt goes, we don't let outsiders beat people in the gym. And that was my first inclination that I was in a very hardcore facility. And the interesting thing about the tricep rollback is that people often neglect tricep training for bench pressing. And in reality, your triceps tend to be the weakest link for most people's training, and again, are not trained hard enough, intense enough, or with enough variety to make sure that they're growing and getting stronger for pressing, but also building immense tricep size. So the tricep rollback is going to be one of those exercises that you really, really want to do. Now what you're seeing in this video is it done off the floor. Now the reason we like to do this off of the floor is because when you go back to the floor, you actually pause and you reduce the energy transference coming up on the concentric. So again, think about it like bench pressing correctly. If you bench press touch and go, it's quite a bit easier than pausing, right? Well, on the floor, you have to pause it on the floor, and that makes it a lot more difficult, therefore making the muscles have to work harder. So that's exercise number one, and one of the big ones that I remember from my initial time at Westside Barbell. The next exercise that's been utilized a lot in physical therapy, my friend Dr. John Russin uses it. I've been talking about it for years. You see a lot of people really using this exercise and for a good cause. But the first time I saw the face pull was with Louis Simmons. And so in 1999, one of the workouts we're doing, Louis is talking to me about the importance of upper back strength, stability when it comes to pressing. And that's when I started to realize that the upper back was a massive component to being able to bench press humongous weights. If we look at guys that have followed Westside similar systems like Ryan Kennelly, guys like Scott Mendelson, you look at the size of their upper backs, it's no wonder that their ability to bench press was so high. Another guy that comes to mind is Eric Spoto, training with Mark Bell at the time. Mark Bell also came from Westside Barbell, and we were friends all the way back since the early 2000s, coming from the Westside Barbell lineage. So the point is that your upper back is insanely important, and face pulls of all different varieties are very, very crucial in order for you to not only bench press big weights, but also have insane mass in your upper shoulder, trap, rhomboid area, and be protected when you bench press. So make sure that face pulls are in your workouts as much as possible. The last exercise you see small crews of people talking about, but oddly enough is hardly ever done correctly. And the way I was taught was not even the way that J.M. Blakely teaches it now. And that's called the J.M. press. That was named after J.M. Blakely in the mid to late 90s, right before my time at Westside Barbell. But the way we were using it at Westside Barbell to build our bench press was slightly different than the way J.M. Blakely had initially invented it. The J.M. press is a form of a skull crusher that puts a lot of pressure on the elbow and the tricep in order for that particular area to grow and become a dominant pressing movement pattern. The J.M. press is one of those exercises when you build it up, all of your pressing exercises go up, whether it be flat bench, incline bench, decline bench, military press. All of those lifts will go up by building your J.M. press. And the J.M. press is one of a staple exercises that we use usually during peaking phases in our apps and here at the gym. I like to save the J.M. press for when we want to be the strongest we can be in an annual season. So the J.M. press is one of those exercises that, in my opinion, is one that is needed immensely in training for you to have massive arms and massive pressing. So when you're trying to do J.M. presses, make sure that you keep it in your elbows as much as possible. Now, everybody will be built differently on this, and so where they want to touch will be different. The initial way that I learned to do it was to go to the throat, but we also have done it to the chin, to the nose, and to the eyebrows, changing the pressure on the shoulder. The big problem with the J.M. press is you have to try to keep it back over your head and push it with your tricep, because most people want to throw it back into a pressing movement and use shoulders and pecs for assistance. The real trick is keep it kind of like a skull crusher and keep your grip narrow and try to use all triceps. So that wraps up some of the key exercises that I use for upper body that I first learned from the old school Westside Barbell when it was still just a 600-700 square foot facility. I hope these exercises really help you to develop your pressing power, your upper body mass, and most importantly, keep you healthy. If you want to know when and where to put these exercises, come on to Patreon, check out the workouts there, or Train Heroic, and you'll see these exercises on a fairly consistent basis, done in the right rep range and at the right part of your workouts. Talk to you guys soon, and we really appreciate you guys watching.